He left his billionaire wife for his secret lover, knowing she was the one who made him rich. But what he didn't know was that walking away from her meant walking straight into his own downfall. Mark and Lisa looked like the perfect couple to everyone who knew them. They lived in a giant glass mansion on a quiet hill, drove shiny cars, and threw parties that made people whisper, "That's real love and success." Mark was tall, charming, and always smiling. People admired how confident he was, how he carried himself like a man born for greatness. What no one knew was that everything Mark had, every car, every watch, every fancy suit, belonged to Lisa. Lisa was the true power behind their life of luxury. She had built her fortune from nothing, starting with a small clothing brand that grew into a billion-dollar empire. But she loved Mark deeply and never cared that he wasn't as rich or ambitious. She let him shine, allowed people to believe he was the one with the money, because she thought love mattered more than pride. At first, their marriage was filled with laughter and warmth. Lisa handled business meetings and deals, while Mark enjoyed the spotlight, entertaining guests and taking credit for success he didn't earn. She didn't mind. It made him happy. But as time went on, something changed. Mark started feeling small next to her power. He grew jealous of how people respected Lisa more. And when Claire, a young, beautiful woman full of energy, came into his life, Mark began to believe he could start over, without Lisa. He told himself that Claire loved him for who he was, not for Lisa's money. He started lying to both women, juggling two worlds built on secrets. Mark began coming home later and later, his excuses sounding thinner every night. "Late meeting, babe," he'd say with a tired smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You know how work gets." Lisa would nod quietly, pretending to believe him. She never raised her voice or accused him. She just watched. Her sharp eyes saw everything. The missed dinners, the sudden phone calls, the new cologne, and the way he hid his phone screen whenever it lit up. She knew something was wrong. But Lisa wasn't the kind of woman to rush into a fight. She believed that truth had a way of revealing itself, even without her help. Mark thought he was being clever. Each night, after kissing Lisa on the forehead and pretending to be exhausted, he'd sneak out, saying he was meeting a client. Instead, he was with Claire, his secret escape. Claire made him feel alive again. She laughed at his jokes, touched his face softly, and called him my king. She believed every lie he told her. He told her that Lisa didn't love him anymore, that he was trapped in a cold marriage, and that he was planning to leave soon. Every time he said those words, Claire's eyes would light up. "You'll leave her for me?" she'd whisper. And Mark would nod, thinking he was in control. But what he didn't know was that Lisa had already begun to see the pattern. She had her people, drivers, assistants, security guards, all quietly watching, reporting every move. She never shouted or cried. Instead, she spent her nights in her office, working, thinking, and waiting for the moment when Mark would finally make his biggest mistake. And that moment came one rainy evening when he stayed out too long. Lisa waited in their dimly lit bedroom until 2 a.m. When he finally stumbled in, smelling of perfume and guilt, she only said softly, "You must be tired, Mark. Long night." He froze for a second, his heart pounding. "Yeah, meetings ran late." Lisa gave him a small smile that sent a strange chill through him. "I understand. You work so hard." Then she turned off the lamp and said nothing else. Mark lay awake beside her, his chest tight. Deep inside, he felt something uneasy, like she knew. But he pushed the thought away. He told himself Lisa was too kind, too trusting to ever suspect. The next morning, he woke up to find breakfast ready, as usual. Lisa hummed softly in the kitchen, calm and graceful. It almost made him feel guilty. Almost. But when his phone buzzed, and he saw Claire's message, "Can't stop thinking about last night," the guilt faded, replaced by excitement. He smiled, pocketed his phone, and kissed Lisa on the cheek before leaving for work. Lisa watched him drive away from the window. Her smile never faded, but her eyes told another story. She whispered quietly to herself, "Go ahead, Mark. Keep digging." And as the days passed, Mark's lies grew bolder. He began spending entire weekends on business trips that didn't exist. He started taking Claire to restaurants that Lisa used to love, pretending her laughter could fill the space his wife once did. He didn't notice how the house staff grew colder toward him. He didn't see how his credit cards began getting declined, one by one. Lisa was tightening the strings, slowly, silently. And when Mark finally stood in front of the mirror one morning, looking at himself and thinking, "I deserve to be happy," he picked up his phone. His fingers shook slightly as he typed the message that would shatter everything. "I can't do this anymore, Lisa. I'm leaving." He took a deep breath and pressed send. The sound of rain hitting the window was the only thing that filled the small, quiet room. Mark sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone, his heart pounding. He had just sent the message that would change everything. "I can't do this anymore, Lisa. I'm leaving." His fingers trembled as he pressed send. He didn't even look back at his wife, who was standing silently by the door, her eyes red but calm. Lisa didn't say a word. She only gave him a small, sad smile that sent a strange chill down his spine. "All right, Mark," she said softly. "If that's what you want." Mark thought he was finally free. Free to live the life he wanted, with Claire, his beautiful secret lover who made him feel young and alive again. Claire had always thought Mark was rich. He dressed well, drove fancy cars, and took her to fine restaurants. She had no idea that everything she saw belonged to Lisa, his billionaire wife. Lisa owned companies, estates, and investments all over the country. But she loved Mark so much that she let him play the role of the rich husband. She didn't mind that people thought he was the one with the money. She liked to stay quiet and hidden, watching him shine. But that night, when he walked out of their mansion with just one small bag and a foolish smile, she simply whispered, "You'll come back to me, Mark. You just don't know it yet." When Mark arrived at Claire's small apartment, he was full of joy. Claire ran into his arms, laughing, and kissed him. "You really left her? Oh, Mark, we can finally be together." He smiled, pretending everything was fine. "Yes, baby. It's just you and me now." But deep inside, his chest tightened. He didn't have a house. He didn't have a car. Lisa owned it all. He didn't even have access to the bank cards because Lisa had handled everything. Still, he told himself he'd figure it out. Maybe Claire's love would be enough. The next morning, Claire asked, "Honey, when are we moving into your mansion? I can't wait to see our bedroom." Mark froze. He didn't know what to say. The house needs cleaning," he lied quickly. "We'll move in soon." Claire clapped her hands in excitement, not noticing the sweat forming on his forehead. Over the next few days, Mark tried calling people he thought were his friends. None of them answered. The ones who picked up only said, "Sorry, Mark, we deal with Lisa directly." That's when fear began to creep in. He started running out of money. The fancy dinners stopped. He began lying to Claire more often, saying things like, "My cards are blocked for now," or "I'm waiting for a business deal to clear." Claire didn't doubt him, at first, but soon, she began to notice things. His phone was always silent. His clothes were wrinkled. He looked tired and worried. One evening, she asked, "Mark, are you hiding something from me?" He forced a laugh. "Of course not. I just have a lot on my mind." But Claire's heart felt uneasy. Meanwhile, Lisa was in her office, watching the rain again. Her assistant entered quietly. "Madam, should I cancel Mr. Mark's credit cards?" Lisa smiled faintly. "Already done." The assistant hesitated. "Should we cut off his access to the car too?" Lisa turned her chair toward the window. "Yes, let him learn." Out in the city, Mark's nightmare grew worse. His car was repossessed. The landlord of the small apartment began knocking on the door for rent. Claire finally saw through the lies. "Mark, where's your house? Where's your money?" she shouted one night. Mark's face turned pale. It's complicated." "Complicated?" she screamed. "You told me you own companies." He tried to grab her hand, but she pulled away. "I can fix this, Claire. Just give me time." But she was already packing her things. "You liar. You used me." As she slammed the door, Mark fell to his knees, his world collapsing around him. Far away, in her quiet mansion, Lisa poured herself a glass of wine. She looked at her wedding photo on the table and whispered, "Love is patient, but not foolish." That night, Mark slept alone on a couch that wasn't his, in an apartment that wasn't paid for, realizing he had lost everything. But Lisa wasn't done with him yet. The next morning, a black car stopped in front of his building. A man in a dark suit stepped out and handed Mark an envelope. Inside was a letter written in Lisa's neat handwriting. "You left the queen for a pawn. Now you'll learn the board still belongs to me." Mark's hands shook as he read it again and again. A cold fear filled his chest. For the first time in his life, he realized what true power looked like, and it wasn't his. Outside, The same black car waited, engine running. The driver lowered the window and said quietly, "Madam wants to see you." Mark's throat went dry. He wanted to run, but deep down, he knew there was no escaping Lisa. He stepped into the car, and that was when everything began to change. Outside, dark clouds gathered again, just like the night he left her. Only this time, he had no smile, just fear. The car drove off slowly, carrying him back to the woman he had betrayed, the woman who owned his name, his comfort, and his fate. Lisa was waiting, and she wasn't planning to forgive. Outside, thunder rolled as the mansion gates opened. Mark's heart pounded. He didn't know if he was walking into mercy or a trap, but he was about to find out. The car moved slowly up the long driveway, rain splashing against the windows as flashes of lightning lit up the sky. Mark's heart beat so fast he could almost hear it in his ears. Every sound, the windshield wipers, the low hum of the engine, felt louder than usual. He swallowed hard and looked out the window, watching the mansion grow larger with every passing second. The home that once made him feel proud now filled him with dread. When the car stopped at the grand entrance, the driver stepped out and opened the door for him. "She's waiting inside," he said in a firm, emotionless voice. Mark hesitated before stepping out. The air was cold and heavy with the smell of rain. His shoes sank slightly into the wet gravel as he walked up the steps. The door opened before he could knock. One of the house staff, a man who used to greet him with respect, stood there silently and gestured for him to enter. The house was quiet, too quiet. The chandelier lights were dimmed, casting soft shadows on the marble floor. Mark's reflection followed him as he walked through the wide hallway toward the sitting room. His hands were sweating, his mind spinning with thoughts. What would she say? What would she do? Lisa was sitting by the fireplace, wearing a simple black dress, her hair tied neatly behind her. A faint smile rested on her lips, but her eyes were cold and unreadable. She didn't stand when he entered. She only lifted her glass of wine slightly, as if toasting him. "Welcome home, Mark," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but the tone carried a quiet power that made him shiver. He tried to smile, though his lips barely moved. "Lisa, I didn't expect." She raised her hand gently, stopping him. "Please, don't waste words. Sit." He obeyed, lowering himself into the chair opposite hers. For a long moment, there was silence, just the crackle of the fire between them. Lisa took a slow sip of her wine before setting the glass down carefully. "You left me," she said at last. "Without a word. Without a reason worth hearing. You thought I wouldn't survive without you." Mark looked down at his hands. "Lisa, I was confused. I made a mistake." She let out a quiet laugh, not loud or bitter, just soft enough to sting. "A mistake? You didn't just walk away, Mark. You took the world I built and pretended it was yours. You fed another woman with lies I paid for, and you thought I wouldn't notice." He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. Lisa leaned forward slightly, her gaze sharp and steady. "Tell me, Mark, when you walked out of this house, what did you think you were taking with you?" He looked at her, his voice breaking. "I just wanted to be happy." Lisa tilted her head. "And was she worth it? The woman you threw everything away for." Mark's throat tightened. He couldn't meet her eyes. "She left," he whispered. For the first time, Lisa smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly. "Of course she did. She fell in love with the image you borrowed from me. But now she's seen who you really are." Tears stung Mark's eyes. "Lisa, please. I know I hurt you, but I'm sorry. I swear I am. I don't know what else to say." Lisa rose slowly from her chair. Her heels clicked softly on the floor as she walked toward him. She stopped just in front of him, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of her perfume. She placed a single folded paper on the table between them. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. Mark looked down. It was a contract, one he had signed years ago when they got married. A prenuptial agreement. He had never bothered to read it properly. Lisa's voice was calm, almost too calm. "This paper means everything you thought was yours never was. You left with nothing, Mark, because nothing belonged to you." Mark's chest sank. He reached for the paper, but his hands trembled too much to touch it. Lisa took a deep breath and turned away, walking back toward the window. The rain had slowed outside, but the thunder still rolled in the distance. "You know," she said quietly, "I gave you everything because I believed in love. But you gave me betrayal in return. And now," she paused, her reflection glowing faintly in the glass. Now I will show you what it feels like to be invisible. Mark stood up suddenly, desperate. Lisa, please. I'll do anything. I made a mistake, but I can make it right. She turned back to him, her eyes colder than before. You already did, Mark. You showed me who you are, and I will never forget that. The room fell silent again. The fire crackled softly as Lisa sat back down, picking up her glass once more. Go home, Mark, she said finally. Wherever that is now. Mark stood there frozen, tears sliding down his cheeks. Then, slowly, he walked to the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. When he reached the doorway, he turned to look at her one last time, but she wasn't looking back. Outside, the rain began again, soft but steady, as if the sky itself was crying for him. He stepped into the cold night, realizing the truth he had ignored all along. Lisa had been his home, his world, his everything. And now he had none of it. But what Mark didn't know was that Lisa had already planned the next move. She wasn't finished with him, not yet. Because sometimes, love doesn't end with goodbye. Sometimes, it begins with revenge. The next morning, Mark woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing beside him. He had fallen asleep on a stranger's couch, the only friend who had pitied him enough to let him stay for the night. His head throbbed from a restless sleep, and his eyes were swollen from crying. He blinked at the screen. It was an unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Hello. A woman's voice came through, calm and professional. Good morning, Mr. Mark. I'm calling from L&L Holdings. Madam Lisa requests your presence at the main office by noon. He sat up quickly, his pulse rising. What for? She said you'll find out when you get here. The woman replied and hung up before he could ask more. Mark's stomach twisted. He had no car, no money, not even decent clothes. Still, he borrowed a shirt from his friend and caught a bus into town. The ride felt longer than usual, each bump on the road matching the uneasiness in his chest. When he arrived at L&L Holdings, the empire Lisa had built, the guards didn't greet him like before. They only checked his name and said, "You can go up." No smiles, no respect, just cold formality. He stepped into the elevator, watching his reflection in the mirror. His once confident face now looked tired and broken. The elevator doors opened to the top floor, and as he stepped out, he saw Lisa's assistant waiting. "This way, Mr. Mark," she said curtly, leading him into a large boardroom. Lisa was already there, sitting at the head of the table, dressed sharply in a white suit. Around her sat several serious-looking board members. Mark froze at the door, feeling smaller than he ever had before. "Ah, Mark," Lisa said without looking up from her papers. "So glad you could make it." He forced a weak smile. "Lisa," she lifted her hand slightly. "Please sit." He obeyed. Lisa flipped through a folder and then looked straight at him. "Do you remember the contract you signed when we started this company together?" Mark frowned. "Yes, you said it was just paperwork to formalize our marriage partnership." She smiled faintly. "That paperwork made you a silent partner, Mark, which means your name appears, but your power does not. You have no control, no shares, and no authority. You're just a signature on a page." The room fell silent. Mark's throat went dry. Lisa leaned forward. "But today, I called you here for something else. I want to offer you a job." He blinked. "A job?" "Yes," she said, nodding. "Since you no longer have a company, a car, or a home, I think it's fair to help you get back on your feet. We're hiring a personal assistant for one of our junior managers. You'd fit nicely." The board members shifted in their seats, some hiding smiles. Mark's face burned. "Lisa, please don't do this to me." Her tone stayed even. "Do what? Offer you employment? You said you'd do anything, remember?" His lips trembled. He could see the satisfaction in her eyes. Not cruel, but controlled. It wasn't about destroying him. It was about teaching him. "I can't work here," he whispered. Lisa picked up a pen and signed the last page in the folder. "You don't have to, but it's either this or nothing. And trust me, outside this company, no one will hire you. You're blacklisted, Mark. Every business you touched belongs to me." Mark's heart sank. Lisa stood up, her voice calm and final. "You chose your path, Mark. I'm just making sure you walk it." As she turned to leave, he called out, "Lisa, please don't hate me." She stopped at the door and looked back at him. "I don't hate you," she said softly. "Hate would mean you still matter." Then she walked out, leaving him sitting alone in a room full of people who used to respect him. The silence felt heavier than ever. Outside, Through the tall glass windows, he could see the city glowing in the afternoon sun. He once ruled that world, or thought he did. Now it looked like a kingdom that had forgotten his name. He buried his face in his hands, not noticing the assistant who stepped into the room to hand him an ID card with his new position. Mark Dawson, junior staff assistant. Somewhere down the hall, Lisa's heels clicked softly on the floor as she entered her office. She looked out the window, her reflection calm and steady. A faint smile curved her lips as she whispered to herself, "Let him learn to serve what he once owned." But even as she said it, something deep inside her chest ached quietly. Because revenge, no matter how perfect, never healed love. It only made the silence louder. And though she didn't know it yet, Mark wasn't done either. Because broken men don't just disappear. Sometimes they come back. And when they do, they're no longer the same. Weeks passed, and the once confident Mark Dawson became just another face in the crowd. Every morning, he arrived at L&L Holdings in a wrinkled shirt and cheap tie, clutching his small ID card. No one greeted him anymore. The same staff who used to open doors for him now walked past without a glance. He sat at a small desk in the corner of the open office, typing endless reports and delivering coffee to people who used to work under him. Each task was a reminder of how far he had fallen. Sometimes, when he passed the big glass door of Lisa's office, he would pause, just for a second, hoping she'd look up. But she never did. She had moved on with the calmness of a queen who had already won the war. Still, every night, when the office emptied, Mark would stay behind. He would stare at the glowing city lights through the window and whisper to himself, "I'll rise again. I'll show her I'm not nothing." One night, as he was leaving, he heard two junior staff whispering near the elevator. "They say Madame Lisa is launching a new project, something massive." "Yeah, and only top executives are allowed to work on it." "I heard she's bringing in some international investors too." Mark's heart skipped. He knew Lisa never did anything small. Whatever she was planning could change the company completely. A spark lit inside him, an old fire that hadn't completely died. Maybe this was his chance. The next day, during lunch break, he sneaked into the records room to see if he could find anything about the new project. He found a thick file labeled Project Rebirth. The name itself made his pulse race. He flipped it open and froze. Inside were pages of designs, numbers, and maps. But one thing caught his eye, the signature line at the bottom of the main proposal. It didn't say Lisa Dawson. It said Lisa Benson. His eyes widened. Benson was Lisa's maiden name. She had removed his last name completely. For some reason, that small detail hit him harder than anything else. It was as if she had erased every trace of him from her life and her empire. He stood there for a long time, staring at the name until a voice behind him made him jump. "Still snooping around where you don't belong?" He turned sharply. It was Lisa's assistant, the same woman who had called him weeks ago. Her sharp eyes looked him over coldly. "I was just organizing the files," he stammered. "Don't lie, Mark," she said firmly. "You've already lost enough because of lies. Don't make it worse." She took the file from him and walked away. But before leaving, she stopped and said quietly, "You'll want to be careful. Madam may forgive mistakes, but not curiosity." Mark's hands shook. He knew Lisa wasn't cruel for no reason, but she was dangerous when crossed. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Project Rebirth. The name haunted him. Why Rebirth? What was she planning? A few days later, an internal memo was released. Lisa was hosting a grand event to announce the project's launch. All employees were invited to attend. Mark stared at the email for a long time. He knew it was his chance, not to beg, but to prove himself. He had lost everything, but deep inside, he still had his mind. And if he could find a way to impress her again, maybe, just maybe, she would see he wasn't useless after all. On the day of the event, the hall was filled with music, flashing lights, and laughter. Reporters, investors, and staff gathered as Lisa walked onto the stage in a stunning silver gown. The crowd went silent. "Today," she began, her voice clear and confident, "we begin something new. Project Rebirth is not just about business, it's about transformation. It's about rebuilding stronger after being broken." Her eyes scanned the crowd, and for a brief second, they landed on Mark. But she looked away just as quickly. Mark's chest tightened. Her words felt directed at him, like a silent message hidden in plain sight. When the presentation ended and the applause filled the hall, Mark quietly slipped away backstage. He needed to see the files again to understand what she was building. But what he discovered instead made his heart stop. A document was left open on one of the tables. It was a partnership agreement. And next to Lisa's signature was another name, Claire Hudson. Mark froze. Claire, his side chick. She was working with Lisa. His vision blurred as realization struck him. This was revenge, not business. Lisa had found Claire, and now she was using her. But why? And more importantly, what was coming next? Mark backed away slowly, his heart racing. Somewhere behind the curtain, Lisa's calm voice echoed again as she spoke to a group of guests. Mark backed away slowly, his heart racing. Somewhere behind the curtain, Lisa's calm voice echoed again as she spoke to a group of guests. Sometimes, she said with a faint smile, the best way to rebuild is to start with the ruins. Mark turned and slipped out of the hall, his mind spinning. He had no idea that the game had only just begun. Mark's heart pounded as he stepped out into the cool night air. The city lights blurred before his eyes. Claire, his Claire, was back in the picture, and now she was standing beside Lisa, the very woman he had betrayed. It didn't make sense. Why would Lisa work with her? Why would she bring the one person who had torn their marriage apart into her world? He stood there on the pavement, frozen, until the sound of laughter from inside reminded him where he was. He pulled his jacket tighter and started walking, his mind racing. Every step echoed with questions. Was Claire plotting with Lisa? Did Lisa know everything that happened between them? By the time he reached the bus stop, his chest felt heavy, his thoughts tangled. The rain began again, soft at first, then harder, drumming against the street like a warning. Across town, in the quiet glow of the mansion, Lisa sat by the fireplace again. Her assistant entered, holding a folder. "It's done, ma'am," she said. "The partnership has been finalized. Claire Hudson will represent the youth branch of Project Rebirth." Lisa nodded slowly, her eyes on the fire. "Good. Should I inform her about the next phase?" Lisa's gaze sharpened. "Not yet. Let her think she's winning. The same way Mark once did." The assistant hesitated, then asked softly, "Do you think he knows?" Lisa smiled faintly. "Oh, he will. Soon." The next day, the office buzzed with excitement. Project Rebirth was all anyone could talk about. Posters went up, meetings were scheduled, and every employee wanted to be part of the new era. Mark sat quietly at his desk, typing reports, pretending not to hear. But his mind was miles away, stuck on that name, Claire Hudson. He had to see her. He had to find out why she was working with Lisa. That afternoon, he got his chance. Claire walked through the glass doors of the office, looking elegant in a cream suit. She smiled and waved at the cameras, but when her eyes met Mark's, her smile faltered. He stood quickly, his chair scraping the floor. "Claire," he whispered. She hesitated, then turned to one of the security guards. "I'll be fine," she said softly. As she approached, Mark's voice trembled. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same," she replied coldly. "You work here now?" He looked down, embarrassed. "Things changed. Lisa offered me a job," Claire interrupted. "She said she wanted to help young entrepreneurs. I didn't know she was your wife until after I signed the papers." Mark frowned. "And you stayed?" Claire's eyes darkened. "You lied to me, Mark. You made me think you were rich, that you could build a future for us. But all that time, you were living off her money. Why would I walk away from the real deal when the fake one broke me?" Her words cut deep. Mark stepped closer. "Claire, you don't understand. Lisa's not doing this to help you. She's using you to get back at me." Claire tilted her head, her voice sharp. "And maybe I'm fine with that." Mark's stomach dropped. Before he could speak again, Lisa's assistant appeared at the door. "Miss Hudson, Madam wants to see you now." Claire glanced at Mark one last time. "Goodbye, Mark. Try not to ruin this one too." She walked away, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the hallway, surrounded by whispers and stares. Inside Lisa's office, Claire stood with her hands clasped. Lisa smiled faintly from behind her desk. "You handled that well," Lisa said. "He needed to see you succeed." Claire forced a smile. He looked lost. "Good," Lisa replied. "Let him feel it. Every bit of the emptiness he left behind." Claire hesitated, her eyes softened. "Lisa, I agreed to help you because he hurt us both. But sometimes I wonder, how far are you willing to go?" Lisa stood slowly, walking to the window. "Until he understands that betrayal has consequences." Claire's voice lowered. "And if he breaks completely?" Lisa turned, her face calm, but unreadable. Then maybe that's what it takes for him to learn what love really costs. Later that night, Mark sat at his small rented room, staring at a picture on his phone, an old photo of him and Lisa smiling on their wedding day. His thumb hovered over her face. He whispered, "You still love me. I know you do. You wouldn't be doing all this if you didn't." But deep down, he wasn't sure if he was trying to convince himself or if he truly believed it. Outside, the city lights flickered through the rain-streaked window. He didn't know that far across the city, Lisa was staring at the same picture on her laptop screen. Her eyes tired, her heart heavy, but her resolve stronger than ever. And Claire, in her new apartment, sat alone, scrolling through messages she never sent, wondering if she had just traded one heartbreak for another. Three souls, tangled by love, lies, and revenge, were moving toward a storm none of them could stop. And somewhere in the shadows, the next twist was already waiting. Rain poured heavily that night, as if the heavens were trying to wash away everything that had gone wrong between them. Mark couldn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed, the walls of his small apartment pressing in on him. Every sound, every drop of rain felt like Lisa's voice whispering in his ear. Whispering in his ear, he picked up his phone again. This time, he didn't hesitate. He typed a message to Lisa. "I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to break you. But please, don't let anger turn you into me." He hit send, dropped the phone on the bed, and buried his face in his hands. Across town, Lisa's phone vibrated beside her cup of tea. She picked it up, read the message, and froze. For the first time in a long while, she felt something break. Not anger, not pride, but the wall she had built around her heart. Claire walked in quietly. "You look pale," she said. Lisa handed her the phone. He apologized. Claire read it, her voice softening. "Do you believe him?" Lisa stared at the rain outside. "I don't know anymore. I wanted him to suffer, but now it just feels empty." Claire sat beside her. "You got what you wanted, Lisa. He's lost, broken, and full of regret. But maybe revenge isn't healing you. It's chaining you." Lisa looked at her, eyes glistening. "And what about you? Don't you hate him too?" Claire gave a faint smile. "I did, but hate only kept me close to the pain. I'm tired of carrying him in my heart." For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain fell harder, and the fire in the room flickered low. Then Lisa sighed and whispered, "Maybe it's time we let go." The next morning, Mark woke up to a message. "Meet me at the park, 4 p.m. No cameras, no assistants, just us." Lisa. He got there early, waiting under the same tree where he and Lisa once spent Sunday afternoons reading together. The air smelled of wet earth and old memories. When Lisa finally arrived, she looked different, calmer, softer. Claire was with her but stayed a few feet behind, watching quietly. Lisa spoke first. "You hurt me, Mark. You lied. You broke our vows. And you left me to rebuild everything alone." Mark lowered his head. "I know, and I don't deserve forgiveness. But I never stopped loving you." Lisa took a slow breath. "Love isn't always enough. Sometimes it's the thing that destroys us the most." He nodded. "Then maybe this is where it ends." Lisa gave a sad smile. "Maybe not ends. Maybe starts again. Just differently." She reached into her bag and pulled out a brown envelope. "This is the last thing tying us together. The divorce papers. I already signed them." He stared at it for a long time, then took the pen and signed too. For a moment, they stood there. Two people who had loved deeply, lost terribly, and now stood free. Lisa extended her hand. "Goodbye, Mark." He shook it gently. "Goodbye, Lisa." As he turned to leave, he caught Claire's eyes. There was no hatred there, only quiet understanding. She gave a small nod, and he nodded back before walking away. Weeks later, Claire thought she was in the clear. She didn't know that Lisa had one last plan. Lisa leaned back in her chair, watching the rain fade into a soft drizzle. "You know," she said, her tone smooth as glass, "people always assume revenge means fire and noise. But real revenge is silence. It's watching them destroy themselves while you sit in peace." Her assistant entered the room quietly. "Ma'am, it's done." Lisa nodded. "Good. Let the news circulate by morning." The assistant left, and Lisa poured herself another glass of wine. She opened her tablet and refreshed the news feed. The headline flashed instantly. Luxury clothing brand Claire Designs under investigation for fraud and stolen funds. Lisa smiled faintly. She had known for weeks that Claire had used company money Mark once gave her, to launch her business. The moment Mark's accounts froze, the paper trail pointed directly at Claire. Lisa didn't have to lift a finger. The law would do the rest. Across town, Claire sat on her bed, phone buzzing nonstop. Her face drained of color as she read the headline. Her investors were pulling out. Her business accounts were locked. Everything she had built, her pride, her fame, her followers, vanished overnight. She threw her phone against the wall, trembling. No, this can't be happening. But it was. Meanwhile, Mark, who had been sleeping on a friend's couch, saw the same news. He dropped his coffee cup. "Claire, what did you do?" He rushed to call her, but she didn't pick up. For the first time, he realized he had destroyed his life for someone who only cared about status, not love. By evening, the two of them sat in separate places, surrounded by silence and regret, each broken in their own way. Lisa, however, sat calmly by her window, the glow of the city reflecting in her eyes. She had no smile this time, no joy, only peace. Because she knew what they didn't. Revenge wasn't about destroying others. It was about reclaiming herself. She stood, closed the curtains, and whispered to herself, "Let them feel the emptiness they left in me." Outside, the rain started again, gentle, cleansing, endless. Lisa closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The pain, the anger, the betrayal, all of it finally washed away with the storm. She realized then that life has a way of balancing itself. You don't always have to fight to win. Sometimes, you just have to step back and let truth do the work. Because in the end, those who build their joy on lies will always fall, and those who rise from pain will always find peace. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more soul-stirring stories like this. And now we want to hear from you. Do you think Lisa's revenge was too harsh, or did Claire and Mark get exactly what they deserved? Whose side are you on? Share your thoughts in the comments below.